Hello guys and welcome to a brand new tutorial. Today we're going to be learning how to create the HappyEnemies and Jetfire Brazil lead. So pretty much I've had this sound actually done for quite a while now. I think it's been like a few weeks, a month. You guys requested it in the early stages when it was an ID, and I got around to making it, but the problem was that I was using post-processing in order to achieve the desired effect. So we're gonna make the tutorial, but you're gonna require the Vintage Warmer 2 and the glue. Now if you guys just want to download the presets like I know a lot of people do and don't want to learn anything about the synthesis or what these plugins are doing, you can just go to my Facebook page for the download details at facebook.com/sunworldmusic. It will be in the description below. Now for those of you guys who want to learn about the synthesis, we're going to get into it. It's going to be quite a long video because we have 3 patches to go through. But in essence, you're going to learn a lot, and we're going to find out what these plugins actually are doing to the sound. And pretty much straight off the bat, I'm just going to let you know this is a compressor, the glue, and the PSP Vintage Warmer 2 is like a limiter, but I use it to get that analogish warmth out of it, and then I use a compressor to control the loudness from it. Okay, so in Silent 1, the first patch, we're going to have pretty much a standard lead that you guys have probably seen in all my tutorials, but it's again another similar lead. In A1, also there A1, we're going to have 8 voices saw, so it's another supersonic type of programming. Retrig is off, and we're just going to change the detunement of 5.24, and we're going to be done there. In our amp envelope A, all we're going to do is boost the release up to 1.09. In oscillator A2, we're going to have the white noise with 8 voices, a little bit of volume again to compensate, because white noise is such a high frequency, you don't want it to be loud, because it's just going to blast through the silent and the mix. And we're going to detune the white noise by 4%, which is going to change the white noise sound a bit. Now in filter A, we're going to have input select A, which is only going to route part A through the filter. We're going to have a low pass 24 dB type, so in essence more is going to be covered. We're going to pretty much put the cutoff all the way up. You can kind of move it a little bit back though, just so you kind of get rid of that hissy white noise at the top. No resonance, and we're going to increase drive by 1.29. And then we're going to go to part B. In part B, we have 2 saws. They're both going to be pitched up an octave. So in oscillator B1, we have just pretty much 8 saw with no detunement, and the volume is lowered a tad bit at 7.90. In envelope B, same thing, just increase release up, which is going to give it a tail. Now in oscillator B2, we applied detunement here to a saw with 8 voices, and this one has the volume all the way up, and we did detunement here because we don't want these two pretty much layers just pretty much bumping to each other, being together. Too much of something is too bad of something. So too much of something is bad, just like, eating a lot of vitamins will hurt you, but eating vitamins at a moderate level will help you out. You can't just eat a lot of vitamin A, you have to kind of spread it out. So pretty much we want to spread out the sounds and give each one the place where they're going to be, their purpose in the layer. So this one's going to be another detuned saw, but this one's up an octave compared to this one in order so they don't, not too much of that same fucking frequency. So retrig's off. Okay, so we go to filter B. Now we put part B. We're going to put a low pass, but this one's going to have the cutoff all the way down because we're going to do a little bit of advanced programming here. Resonance down, no drive, 24 dB type low pass. Just make sure the cutoff's all the way up. Our filter control is all the way up. No resonance, no key track, no warn drive is on. Okay, now let's get in a little bit into the advanced part. So we're on our envelope, mod envelope 1, we're going to have the cutoff AB envelope to open up really fast to give it a clicky type of sound. And this is just a simple technique. Our decay is set to around 0.29, and our amount is set to around 6.57. So the filter is going to be opened at the value of the black knob. And as you guys know, when you create plugs, you use your decay first. You have your sustain down, and when you up your decay, you create that plug, because since there's no sustain, as long as when you hold down the note, that thing isn't going to be playing forever. Now we go to mod envelope 2, where we have another simple programming, pitch A, black knob at 0.76, and we're going to increase decay again by 0.29, very minimal amount. You can see what it does to the sound. So as you can see, it gives it that kind of effect, but it happens so fast that it just gives that click effect. Now in LFO1, this is pretty much the bread and butter of the sounds. In the HappyEnemies, MIDI, it's got da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So the notes aren't sustained that long, so you don't get to hear the LFO really act until the last pretty much bar, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, and then once that note plays down, you can hear that LFO. So it's a very nice effect, and this is the way you achieve it. You put a sine wave, route it to pitch AB at a value of 4.48. We're doing this at a rate of 1/8, and we're going to increase the gain to 0.24. Now, make sure to put this in mono legato, normal mode, 2.81 portamento time, and the difference between N and S is that N, you need to hold down a note and then play the other note while you're holding down the first note, and then let go of the first note in order to achieve the effect, while in slide mode, you don't need to do that. You can go from note to note, and it'll give you the effect. Now let's go into the effects section. We're going to apply a phaser at 20%. LFO rate set to 8/1T, just like our LFO one here for our pitch, in order to kind of resemble a theme here. No LFO gain, no feedback, width all the way, and then pretty much you saw that it's set by default. In our EQ, we're rolling a 1-pole EQ. The 2-pole and the 1-pole, the difference between them is the 2-pole kind of acts like a filterish type of EQ, while the 1-pole is just a standard EQ. So our bass is lowered a tad bit, so it's boosted at 6.36 at a frequency of, by default, at 110 hertz. So this is by default. We're going to increase treble to 9.86, and we're going to turn it to around 1562.81 hertz, or you can just have it around 10 o'clock here. Okay, it shouldn't really matter much. We're going to put some decay time, so we're going to put the dry and wet at 46%, decay time to the left at 1.8, decay time to the right at 1.4. We're going to put a low cut and a high cut straight at 9 o'clock. And what the low cut and the high cut and the delay do is that they pretty much apply the low cut and high cut only to the delay, not to your sound. We're not going to smur this. It's spread at 50%. You can have it at 100 if you want. More stereos. Feedback is at 50% and width is at 50 as well. And then finally, we're going to apply some reverb. The dry and wet set to 59%. Our size to 5.93, and our pre-delay set to 12 o'clock, which is in essence going to make the reverb lag for 99.05 milliseconds. And dampness all the way at 0, width all the way up. And pretty much there, we're pretty much done. You can just increase your main volume, and pretty much we have the first layer, which should sound like this without the processing here. So as you can tell, this sound by itself sounds really, really dull. Like it gives, so it's a layer for the sound. It has like a little bit of the mid high and mid low frequency. So that's its effect here. Now we're going to the next version, which is gonna sound like this. So this one's gonna be another type of programming, very simple. In order to make this video not last long, pretty much it's gonna be similar to the last one we made. So if you guys just want these patches, make sure to download them. And let me go a little bit through the programming that we did a little bit different here. So pretty much here is pretty much just the same thing, except we left the retrigger on for one of the saws in order to make it a little bit more louder. They're both utilizing low pass filters, and pretty much we have the same pitch AB effect, except it's getting moved back. And in essence, what that's gonna give you, it's gonna make the lead kind of, it's like a side chain. If you guys have heard the Quintino Go Hard track, if you hear the lead, it kind of sounds like it has a sidechain at the beginning of it. So this is how you achieve that effect. So pretty much it's at negative 0.76, and we have routed to both part A and part B, and the decay is set to 1.90. So it's very, very, very noticeable because we have our decay at higher than usual. And in LFO one, we have the same effect that we had in the first one, except it's at 116. Rate instead of the 1/8T, which is, they're really still really close. And pretty much just mono legato for this sound, and pretty much it's the same thing as the other one, just a tad bit different in order to add a layer. And talking a little bit about layering, because a lot of you guys ask for it, pretty much you can see that this lead and this one are very different. This one has kind of more of the higher frequencies, while this one has the mid. And finally we go into the last one, which is really just a super saw. And pretty much it's just a super saw with some white noise. And pretty much the idea of this one is to kind of give it a tack, so then it comes in towards the end. And you can see this one's kind of a little bit more wider than these two. So this one gets its own sound, and once you put them together, you're going to achieve this effect. Now, if I turn off my post-processing, this is how it's going to sound like. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about these plugins. So the Vintage Warmer 2 is pretty much a limiter, and it's like really a nice limiter. It has a brick wall limiter as well, as you can put on here. But what I use it for, honestly, I just turn the drive up, and what I'm trying to get out of it is the pretty much the warmness. It gives some type of saturation, analog type saturation to your sound, and it's one of the best pretty much things that that I always put on my leads. It's always on my leads that are bright. And in essence, what it does, it's gonna make it loud. Like if I had it like this. So you can see what it's doing. It's just making it loud and saturating the shit out of it. So what I'd like to do is I like to put the glue compressor right after it, because it controls the loudness from this while still keeping the saturation from it. So here pretty much all I did is I boosted at a value of 3.99, which in essence is going to sound like this. So in essence the sound is straight away done when you do this, but I like to put the glue on, and I do a threshold at negative 10.5 dB. So what the glue is doing, it's pretty much controlling the peaks of all three, and in essence what it does, it unites the sound so it sounds as one. So none of the sounds are going to go past this threshold, and if they do, they're getting pretty much, you know, you're controlling the loudness from it. So you're going to pretty much squish dynamics here in order to make them sound together. We do a makeup of 3.3 in order to get them together, and pretty much that's going to be it. So nothing on my master. This is the way the mixing will work for your track, and if you wanted to just make it lower. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial. I'll be getting more into mixing and mastering and stuff when I'm creating leads more often, but this is just the mixing technique I use. I use the PSP Vintage Warmer 2, and then afterwards I use the glue in order to glue them together, and in that sense you get a very bright and beautiful sound in order to achieve the HappyEnemies and Jetfire Brazil lead.